Hello developers, let's start developing. Today is the 5th day of the Advent of Code 2022, and to be honest, this time I did have a look at the task before, and from what I read, the task itself is quite straightforward. What is the problem is the way our input looks. Basically, our input looks like this. So it's gonna be quite a problem to get it to run, to get to parse this because it is kind of weird. So I will start with basically taking the input and pasting it. So we have some extra empty lines here. You can see that 1, 2, 3, all of these lines have extra spaces, which might be a good thing. I have no idea whether the regular input has extra spaces and whether we should do something around that. The regular input doesn't seem to have any extra spaces because the last row is totally full. But let's just explain what we're looking at here. So we have three stacks, stack 1, stack 2, stack 3. And stack 1 has the packages N and Z, stack 2 has the packages D and C and M, and stack 3 has the package P. And now we have a set of instructions and says move 1 from 2 to 1. Move one package from 2 to 1. So we are moving D to 1. Let's take a look at the task explanation. It's better illustrated there. So we are moving D from 2 to 1. The second step is move three crates from 1 to 3. We're taking all three crates and we're moving them. We're moving them one by one. So D and Z becomes Z and D. Then we have move two stacks from 2 to 1. Whoop, hop. And move one stack from 1 to 2. Tap, tap. And then we need to see which stacks are at the top. That's stack C, stack M, and stack Z, and we need to return CMZ, and that is our solution. The procedure, the way to solve this, it will be a straightforward simulation of the things that happen. But the problem will be how the heck do we parse this? And I'm tempted to say that the simplest way to parse this is basically to hard code three stacks, and the first one has Z and N, the second one has those, and so on and so forth. But we want to be generic. Said the guy who yesterday hard coded the maximum value based on the input, but still, I want to be able to actually read the input and not hard code the input from the file into my code. But this part is gonna be, this part is easy. This part we're gonna take care of really fast. But we have our lines here. And I know that I had some kind of a command testmon. Let's see if that works. This is gonna take a while because I said my computer is kind of slow when I'm recording. Nobody knows why. It might take some time to get it to run, but once it's running, it will be relatively fast. So now it should be running the code each time as we are changing it. And it's running the test method. Okay, I will have to fix that so that it runs the run task method, but we will get there. So after a slight change of our package JSON, we have our code running and we can see that we can read the lines of the input with all the empty lines and whatnot. So what can we do about this? So first of all, we have two segments. One of the segments is the situation, the stack, and the second one is the instruction. So yeah, I have an, let's call it an extension method that we can use to take while it's not an empty line. So we will have the situation, and then we will have something like this. Skip while. And after that, give me the rest of the strings. Let's return situation and commands. This is not really gonna be type safe, so I will do a hack here so that TypeScript kinda goes to the back, because we want to see what is happening. Yeah, so now our situation is D, NC, ZMD, and 1, 2, 3. And here we have our commands. For the commands, we will have to remove the first one because that's the actual empty line. So we can just say slice 1. Let's see what we have now. We're going to do it step by step. We're going to be doing it piecemeal. We're not in any hurry. Yeah, so our situation is correct. Our command is okay. So this is not our actual situation. So we're going to need to have the last part of, I'm going to take first the last part of the situation, and that's the 1, 2, 3 thingy. That will basically give me how many items I have. That's the row with the indices, and that will be situation of situation.length -1. And that thing we can basically split on a space. Let's say we're going to split it on a space and see what we have. We're gonna return the indices as well. Let's see what we got. So we're gonna get a lot of, if I'm correct, we're gonna get a lot of items, but we're gonna get the 1, 2, and 3 as well. Yeah, so in indices we got an empty string 1, empty string 2, empty string 3, and that's about it. So if we do a filter on this where it's not empty and then run a parse, yeah, that's something like what I want to do. This will return an indices of 1, 2, and 3. Yes, our indices are 1, 2, and 3. So now we can initialize our stacks. Because they are going linearly, 1, 2, and 3, we know that the last index is the size of our array of stacks. So we can say our stacks is an array of, well, it will be as big as the last element of indices. Actually, it will be as big as the length of indices. And we can fill it with an zeros. We have to fill new arrays because they have no elements. This is just a concept of an array. And then we will map it to, actually we don't need the index, we don't need anything, we just map it to an empty array. Now we will have stacks, which will be a set of empty arrays. And we will have as many empty arrays as much as we have basically stacks. So if everything is correct, yes, our stacks are empty array, an empty array, an empty array. And now we want to go from the bottom up, because let's look at the input. So from the bottom up, the first element of stack 1 is Z. The last element is N. The first element of stack 2 is M, then a C, then a D. Because stacks are such a structure that the top is always basically on the top. So we want to parse this from the bottom up. We're starting from the row before us and we're going backwards. So we're gonna need to have some kind of a for loop, and it's gonna go from situation dot length -1 or -2. That's gonna be the first row. Because if we have just two rows in the situation, row index 1 is the indices, row index 0, which is 2 minus 2, will be the first row that has it, and we're gonna loop while ei is bigger or equal to 0, and we're gonna be decreasing our index. And since I hate a loop variable called I'm gonna rename this to index. This is totally not what I want to do. This might be relevant to what I want to do, but first of all, I want to get the line. So this thing should return the lines in the reverse order. So if I just say here console log line, will I get the lines in the reverse order? Let's see what happened. Yes, ZMP, NC, D. ZMP, NC, D. Now what happens? Now I might want to play around a bit with splitting these strings. So we have three characters, then a space, then a three characters, then a space, then three characters. Here we have three characters, then a space, then a three characters, then a space, then three characters. So we don't need to split them on a character, we need to chunk them. And we know exactly how many chunks we have. We have indices.length chunks. So and we're gonna be destructive about this, because why not? And we're gonna have a stack index that is gonna be 0. So we're gonna take four characters from our line. Yeah, basically until we have a line. No, we don't want to split it. We want to take four characters out of it. So line dot slice or substring Where do we want to start? We want to start on the zeroth character. And where do we want to end? We want to end on the second character. Yes, that is correct. And this is the value. And we're going to change the line that we're going to shorten the line dot substring starting from the, we want to skip character 0, character 1, character 2, and character 3. So substring 0, substring 1, substring 4, if I'm not mistaken. And let's console log the line here. This might be correct, might not be. Let's see what happens. So we started, the line became empty, and then the line became P, and then the line became empty. The second line started with an NC, became C, and became empty. The next line became D because we turned out the empty string, and then it became empty. Seems like this is kind of working. So now we can say if the value dot trim, which means if we remove all the empty strings from the line and something remains, then we have an item here, which means that we need to add it. And it's not gonna be this, it's gonna be value of 1. Because value is always a character within brackets. And it's not an integer. Sorry, but it's not an integer. It's just a letter. And after we're done with this, we just need to increase the stack index because we are moving on to the next one. So we are taking each line, destroying it by slicing off parts. We can do the same with index management and counting, but slicing off parts is kind of easier to think about. In a real scenario, if I have something that is operational and it's working, then I will think about how to make a better or more performant method if I notice performance penalties. So we have that the first stack has element Z and N, the second stack has element M, C, and D, and the third one has an element called P. Well, we have our stacks. That's cool. So that means we don't need the situation to be part of this. So the situation is done. Now we need to take care of the commands. Well, for the commands, it's gonna be a bit easier because they are kinda repetitive. Let's take them from here. And let's go to the magical site that I love so much. And it's gonna be move some number from that stack to that stack. Let's see if this thing matches. It doesn't because it's move and not move. Yeah. Or on the other hand, we can always say be case insensitive and that will work. So we are extracting the how many to move, the quantity from and to. Yeah, let's have that. Yeah, those are the commands, and now we just need to map the commands. Each command is a line, and for each line this is actually a very useful regex for a task from a previous year, but now we are gonna use this regex. So we're not gonna have this, but we're gonna have this. So we're gonna have quantity, which is gonna be parsing of match of 1. We're gonna have from, and we're gonna have to. Yeah, this is correct, and we're gonna return the commands and stacks. So now means that after we have our type, we can say what the type will be. So we will have, yeah, let's call it simply input because it's something, and it will have a command, which will be an array of commands, and it will be a, yeah, stacks which will be an array of strings. And what is a command? I think it will guess. It will have a quantity that is a number, from, and a to, which are numbers. And I'm gonna do one more thing, because you can see that all of these are 1 based. So we have stacks 1, 2, and 3, and stacks 1, 2 until 9. So, and I have stacks basically index 0, 1, and so on. So to each of the from and to, I will just remove 1. And now we have 0 based commands and 0 based stacks. So we can work in the JavaScript domain. Now we can just change this any, because having any in TypeScript is basically always a bad idea, almost always. Just change string array with input, and this will work magically well, except it will change this as well. We don't want to change it here, and it seems that our code is running. Let's see it one more time. This is what we are trying to objectify and process. So we have move from 1 to 0. Yes, move from 1 to 0. Move from 0 to 2. Yes, move from 1 to 0. Move from 0 to 2. 0 to 1. And we are moving 1, 3, 2, 1. 1, 3, 2, 1. Seems that we have parsed everything correctly. Yay! So, actually this was quite nice. But I will start it now, because I don't want to look at it all the time. I will start it in the console. It will eventually get started. So now we want to do the first part. So what we actually want to do, we just need to run through the input. No, we don't need a for loop, we need a for off loop. For each command of input dot commands, and actually since we're here, let's just destructure it. From this will be quantity, and from and to. So now we need to move quantity things from to. Let's have a simple for loop. Index is less than quantity, index plus plus, from dot pop. Oh, no, not from dot pop, but input dot stacks of from. We need to pop an item. and what we're popping up is a string. In ideally here we would want to check that we have something to pop. Otherwise we will be popping from an empty stack and everything will break. But let's assume for now that our input is sane and correct. So we have our crate that we will take it from the and pop removes it from the end. And now we just need to push it to the other thing. And that's all there is. This basically totally simulates the item. So right now we'll just need to get the result. We have our stacks that we destroyed. And now this is something that I don't really want to do. This kinda destroyed the stacks because this changed the input. And usually I don't want to change the input. That means that I will create new stacks. And this will be in to put stacks and says usually we can copy an array if it's a simple array just by slicing it. But this will copy this will do a shallow copy, and I don't want a shallow copy, I want a deep copy. I want the copy, not a copy of the array of stacks, but I want copy of the stacks that are inside the array of stacks. So in order to that, because I have two dimensions, I will do basically a nested slice or something like that. And now stacks is a full-on copy of our input. So we will remove this and we will remove this. And now our stacks are an array that is initially a copy of our input, but is in no way connected to our input. And now we can say just the stacks. For each stack, basically map it to its last element. Map each stack to its last element. That's stack of stack dot length -1. And now, yeah, join everything together. And we are returning that. And we just need to change that we are not returning a number, we are returning a string. So this doesn't look good. We'll return an empty string. Yeah, this is a string. And this is a string. Hopefully we won't need a number for the second part, otherwise my my puzzle class won't really work. But on the other hand, we can always have a string for anything. I don't have NodeMon installed, not a problem. I will just run it in the normal way. If everything is okay, we should get a CMZ, I think. CMZ. And yes, we got a CMZ. Now, let's do the fun part. Take this huge input and see if our code will explode somehow. The code finished running. It says that this is the final thing, but I think this might be wrong. Especially as we have a lot of duplicates. Oh, we can have duplicates. There are two crates V, there are two crates J, and so on and so forth. Yeah, let's try. Maybe this is the correct answer. Nobody says, yay, and it is. We have 9 stars, and let's see what part 2 is. I haven't seen part 2. Purchase isn't following your prediction. Some mod was covering the right end. Actually, of course. I mean, it's obvious. We thought that the crane was a crane mover 9000. It's crane mover 9001. Oh, that's a totally different story. Ability to pick up and move multiple crates. The crates begin in the same configuration, moving in the stack. However, action of moving 3 crates. The crates are moved in the same order. They retain their order. Meh. I thought that this was gonna be a much more complicated task, but careful what you wish for. There will be plenty of complicated tasks to come later. So I will literally copy this over, and now we basically don't need to pop them off one by one. We can take the last quantity items and just plop them at the end of the other array. So we don't need a loop here. We can just text from dot slice or do we really want to be sleazy? Yeah, I'm gonna do something fun here. I'm gonna simulate a queue because this behaves like a queue. First in, first out, last in, last out. And a stack is a other type of structure that is last in, first out. The last we put in is the first one we are taking in. But what happens if we have 2 stacks? So we are taking from the first, setting it to, if we have 3 stacks, so we want to put from stack number 1 to stack number 3. If we take items from stack number 1 and plop them in stack number 2, they're gonna be in reverse order. But if we do that one more time from stack number 2 to stack number 3, they're gonna be in the correct order again. So yeah, one way to approach this, and more performant to be honest, and the one that you should do, is take the items and move them over. But the more complicated and more fun to do is to create another stack. And this is an empty stack. So we are not pushing to the stack 2, we are pushing to the helper stack. And now we are doing the same thing once more. We are popping from the helper stack and pushing onto the 2 stack. Yeah, this is a weird and inefficient algorithm. But if we're lucky, it might give us the correct answer. Let's see. The answer that we're looking for is MCD. Yep, it works. We are using 2 stacks instead of a 1 queue. And let's run it once more for the bigger input. And we got a totally different response. Let's see if this is correct. Yay! Of course it's correct. 2 stacks are basically 1 queue. A weird and unperformed a single queue, but a star is a star. Right now we have our 2 stars, and that's it for day number 5. Talk to you tomorrow when we will be solving day 6.